The major, who has also dismounted, must now coordinate the fire engagement with the different sections. From an APC commander, he is now in the classic role of a foot infantry leader. Following standard operating procedure, he has even switched into a battle helmet. Unlike many Western infantry outfits, which now enable the infantrymen to be in radio contact with the commanders, the Pakistani infantry trains its soldiers into giving loud, verbal confirmations when they have a visual engagement of enemy targets. Though not modern, this is a cheap, cost-effective way for the army to train its soldiers. But in today's battlefield, where rules and objectives are evolving with security perceptions and threats, what is the real importance of the mechanized infantry?
You cannot win and fight a battle without infantry. This is an established rule. Infantry is must for the ground possession. Infantry is must to conduct the ground operation. Infantry is must to do all the jobs against the enemy, all the tasks against the enemy. And in infantry operation, mobility is very important. So mobility, if the entire infantry is mobilized and mechanized, so the place where you reach in 3 hours, probably you will be able to reach there in 20 minutes. So that is a surprise, and that is the thing which is going to offset the enemy, and enemy is going to caught off guard.
Threat projections indicate that if there is an attack from the eastern border, it is likely to be in the desert terrain of Sindh and southern Punjab. In charge of the defense of the desert is the 5th Corps, also known as Pakistan's Desert Corps. What is the strategic importance of this formation, and how does mechanization fit into its battle plan?
5 Corps is essentially a defensive corps, and we're responsible for a swath of area substantially large, covering most of Sindh, parts of Punjab. Within that defensive capability, have a very powerful offensive capability inbuilt to our corps.
That defensive stance with an offensive capability is a vital component of Pakistani war doctrine, part of the offensive defense strategy propagated in the 1980s by former Army Chief Mirza Aslam Beg. His closing address at Exercise Zarb-e-Momin provides insight into the Pakistan Army's raison-d'être when it comes to its war doctrine.
और फिक्री सलाहियत ज्ञान और तीसरा बड़ा मकसद ये था कि हम इस एक्सरसाइज को लेवल पे करके अपना एक बहुत ही अहम दीनी और नजरियाती जिम्मेदारी पूरी करें। लेकिन अल्लाह ताला से हुक्म है कि हमेशा अपनी तैयारी।
But that was the 1980s. What is the importance of mechanized warfare today? Desert Corps officers say that mechanization is important because the perceived enemy is mechanized as well.
Since we are operating in the desert, and since we feel that if the enemy were to come into the desert, I mean, they would be using mechanized forces to be able to exploit the vastness and the accessibility of the desert, and therefore in response to that you have to be equally equipped.
We focus on conventional operations for our mechanized infantry, and this is as a response to what our envisaged threat is doing, where there is a tremendous emphasis on mechanization, on high-speed operations in tandem with special forces, and a short, intense, possibly short, intense war. So in sync with that kind of an envisaged threat, we're looking at the mechanized infantry becoming more and more the backbone of our response.
But besides the threat from the east, Pakistan is also facing an insurgency in its northwest. While the threat from India is a conventional one, where the mechanized infantry has an obvious role to play, what is the role of the mechanized infantry in this new low-intensity conflict, or as the army calls it, LIC?
In LIC situations, basically, first, this infantry battalion is like any other infantry battalion. It can operate without APCs like a normal regular infantry battalion. Yes, wherever there is a speed required for the operation, the APCs gave an added advantage to a mechanized infantry. So it is, in fact, the mechanized infantry has been very useful while operating in LIC environment.
However, the general officer commanding of a mechanized division had another perspective. He stressed that mechanization is not important for low-intensity conflict, but rather is primarily meant to counter the threat from the east.
Mechanization, that is to meet the LIC, is not the essential requirement. It is to be in keeping with the threat we have from the east in our southern part of the country, and we have done enough, and I think we have a requisite response to guard against any such threat.
But considering that the majority of the infantry is not mechanized, how do non-mechanized, or as they are called, standard infantry units, see this? Is there a silver lining in the still not mechanized cloud? One standard unit's officers defended the traditional role.
You cannot rule out the importance of foot infantry. Foot infantry is at the same time very important, because when you have to go and capture the ground, you have to stick there, and for that the foot infantry is required.
So, where is the new Pakistani infantry headed in terms of mechanization? Is it on time or late?
Realization was always there, and we mechanized our infantry units as back as 1980s. I won't say we are lacking behind. Yes, we are late.
Speed, surprise, mobility, offensive power, even the ability to tactically retreat. These are the tenets of the cavalry, the second oldest of the combat arms, and some contend the most glamorous among the soldiers of any army. Cavalrymen fighting from horseback, and today with tanks, were and are considered the warrior elite. A tank is a tracked, armored fighting vehicle designed for frontline combat, which combines operational mobility and tactical offensive and defensive capabilities. Firepower is normally provided by a large caliber main gun in a rotating turret and secondary machine guns, while heavy armor and all-terrain mobility provide protection. The strategic use of tanks was slow to develop during and immediately after World War I, partly due to technical limitations